Hi, doctor.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
doctor.
Sorry.
How are you, doctor?
I'm okay now.
All right. Okay, so for those of you who just tuned in, we have Dr. Ong Jing Tiong from Newcastle University, Medicine, Malaysia. So what we do in our webinar is that we have academicians and industry professionals. We bring in a number of topics ranging from choosing an education pathway to jobs and careers. For those who just tuned in, my name is Nina. We have our guest speaker here for today, Dr. Ong Jin Tiong, who will be sharing with you about the how-tos for you to become a doctor. Yeah. So a little background. Yeah, Dr. Ong. Dr. Ong has been in the medical education in a variety of capacities, leading several cases of the medical education courses at Newcastle University. Trained at the Royal College of Surgeons, um, in Ireland, Dr. Ong was awarded the membership of the Royal College of General Practitioners as a family medicine specialist and worked in UK general practice for 20 years. So 2 years of which he was anointed as one of the three GPs for North Durham Clinical Commissioning Group to oversee a 300 million pounds in healthcare delivery. So he is currently the Assistant Dean of Clinical Affairs of Newcastle University Medicine, Malaysia. So for those of you in our audience asking why is Dr. Ong not showing his face, yeah, just a quick um, sharing here that Dr. Ong has just been through a very an accident early this morning. So for certain circumstances and situation, Dr. Ong will remain to be in this a blank screen, so only his photos will be here. But don't worry, the presentation will still continue. Um, so before we start, yeah, Dr. Ong, to our audience who have any questions, please do leave a comment. If you want to study medicine, you are welcome to leave your questions and comment in the comment below. Yeah, Dr. Ong, are you ready to present your slides now?
Yes, absolutely.
All
Actually,
right. Yeah.
I'm quite happy to turn on my camera. It's just that I'm on a t-shirt and I
Oh,
didn't comb my hair. I just came up from the hospital, so I'm fine.
all right. Okay, that's great. Thank you for
Yeah,
being such a sport, Dr. Ong.
yeah. So what happened is it wasn't nothing. It wasn't anything major. It was just I was just not paying attention on the bicycle. Luckily, with my helmet, with all the medical advice, we should always
Yeah.
put on a helmet. And a dog attacked me and I fell off the bike at a quite
Oh
high speed.
no.
So I broken my pelvic bone,
Oh
but at least
no.
my head is intact with the helmet.
Thank you so much for being a
Yeah.
thank you so much
Okay.
for being a sport and to participate in our webinar now. Dr. Ong, you may share your screen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Share. So, can you all see the screen?
Hold on. Yeah. Let me just pull it up into the live stream. Yes, there it is. All right, Dr. Ong, you may take it away.
Okay. So today I was asked to talk about um, a topic that is close to a lot of people's hearts. That do you really want to be a doctor? You know, what does it take for you to become a doctor? Rather than I will give you towards the end a little bit of a specific skills or interview technique so that you can have a better chance of getting in. And but I think more importantly is for you to choose carefully what you want to do instead of rushing in and end up regretting it. So the title today is So You Want to Be a Doctor. There's quite a few things that we need to consider. So the first thing is, are you sure? And it's not just a career. For the majority of people, it's their whole life after this medical degree. And it's not just a medical degree. I think with a lot of professional degree, they are very, very similar, not just medicine. For example, as a doctor, you will have to behave a very certain way and behave professionally, whether you are in your clinic or in the hospital or whether you're outside sitting in the restaurant eating. And the last thing you want is to tarnish the image of the profession by misbehaving outside, by doing various sort of activities that you do. But by the way, falling off a bicycle is an accident. So it's not unprofessional. Well, maybe I'm not professional at riding, maybe that's why. But anyway, that's joking aside. So the first thing is, are you sure? Because it will take over your whole life for most people once you decided to sign into a medical profession, and there's certain ways that you need to conduct yourself and behave with yourself, not just the knowledge base. And also, like most professions nowadays, very, very few professions that you get to do that you will learn certain skills and you will do the same thing again and again and again forever. We're still in the computing industry because everything keeps changing all the time. Same thing in medicine. Things keep changing all the time that you have to keep up to date. So there's no the end of studying. So it will be with you for the rest of your life until the day that when you decided to stop practicing. But even then, when I see my friends who have stopped practicing, the continuous professionalism development still continue because there are people still asking them questions. And surely they didn't want to sound like they didn't know anything about medicine after having practiced for about 30 to 40 years. So are you sure? This is a very, very big undertaking to get into the career. And why am I stressing so much about it? Because I want to make sure that you're completely sure why you want to do it. Because the big reason is there's a lot of studies have shown 2/3 of men or 3/4 of women doctors had at some point regretted their decision to do medicine because it's such a long, long career. So the number of people who regretted at some point maybe due to some incident that happened at work, or maybe due to all sorts of reasons. I'm sure the similar sort of studies have done for other professional degrees like law and engineering, and maybe they have some figures as well. But in medicine, the figures is actually fairly high. And if we look at the second point, where at the 5 years after qualification, and still up to 14 to 19% of men and women are still regretting that they actually did it. So that's 5 years after qualification, which is the degree itself took 5 years minimum to start with. So 10 years after getting in university, they're still regretting. And so again, that's something that is very, very important to make you aware. There are things like this. 10 to 15% of doctors leave after 2 years after graduation. But this is not such a, well, ideally for a medical school, when we produce doctors, for most countries, they tend to match the numbers of the medical students. I've practiced in the UK for a long, long time. So most of the medical students number is carefully monitored so that there is enough doctors to serve the population. In Malaysia, things may have gone slightly over for a little bit, but to be fair, Malaysia still need lots and lots of specialist doctors. So that's why they're trying to expand the number. But unfortunately, because it's the postgraduate training that's kind of holding people back a little bit, that's why there's all this news about too many doctors in Malaysia. And I can tell you now, there's not enough doctors in Malaysia. There's not enough specialists or senior doctors. There may be too many doctors at the junior level at the moment. But things will start to ease off when the specialist training programs start to improve. And so a lot of people, because they're regretting it, is because they just didn't have a proper career advice. I remember in my days when I was doing my A-levels or O-levels, trying to ask for career advice. You ask a doctor, they'll tell you don't be a doctor. And you ask a non-doctor, they'll tell you yes, be a doctor. You ask a career school counselor. In those days, we didn't have school counselor, and I suspect most of the school counselors will probably not have done a medical degree. So it's difficult for them to actually give you this kind of advice. So in Malaysia, there's a lot of headlines saying that 1 in 5 quit their training job while they're training. That's why it's so important for us to stress the point: are you sure? Are you really, really sure this is something that you want to get into? Okay. And the third point there, where there's a 10 to 15% doctors leave after 2 years or more after graduation. And that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It's not very good for workforce planning for the country. Like, for example, if in the UK, 10 to 15 doctors, percent of doctors leave after 2 years, then their workforce planning for the healthcare system may not work so well. And but for that individual, a lot of times they actually flourish in all sorts of other careers, which I can show you later. So, like I said, about 80%, 85%, or up to 90% chose a career in medicine. So the reason why there's a high retention, because I don't have the numbers for all the other courses. Uh, as far as I remember, all the people, my friends who went to uni with, majority of them who did law, I think left with only about 10% of them still practicing law. Majority of them are actually not in law. Uh, so in medicine, we still have a fairly high figures of 85 to 90% who remain in the job in medicine. The part of the reason I suspect is there are a lot of variety and different sort of specialties for people. So there's at least listed at least 65 different kind of specialisms that you can choose, and it's quite interesting to realize that the our body is only so big, but there's 65 different areas that you can branch into just on the human body, which is quite fascinating. So there's lots and lots of dimensions to consider. So the 10 to 15% of the people who chose a career path outside medicine, a lot of them still somewhat relate to medicine. And so they could be doing things like journalism, medical journalism. They work for medical journals. They could be working for industries like pharmaceutical company that makes medication, drugs, and all these areas. They they they, they want doctors because we bring in this different kind of skill set and different kind of knowledge to help them to develop. So a lot of people go into armed forces, army doctor, or people can go into medical indemnity insurance because it's getting bigger and bigger industry. And lately, some people like me who kind of still keep some time practicing as a doctor, but at the same time spending most of the time parting our knowledge, our experience with students and younger people. So when I get old, for example, when I fell off today, I was very, very grateful that there's a young doctor that came to see me and organized the X-ray for me. So it is actually quite a good degree to take elsewhere. And sometimes it could be something very, very unrelated. It seems unrelated, but it can be very, very useful. So this is just a bit of a funny slide. Instead of me talking and talking and talking for 40 minutes. So it's just a quick illustration to show that there's something for everybody. So whether you are, oops, am I still sharing or have my screen has gone funny? I assume that I'm still sharing. Okay, so there's something for everybody. So for a medical student, whether you are not crazy, whether you're crazy, whether you're hardworking, a lot of people believe that doctors are all very hardworking. I think there's to some extent that's true, but it's not always true. As you can see on the right side of the graph, you're not too hardworking. There are some jobs there for you as well. But do not share this slide. This is just a funny slide that some of the ophthalmologists or the dermatologists or radiologists that might get really, really upset about me saying they are not that hardworking. But this is just jokes like just to try to show you that there's a lot of different areas that you can go into. Depending on what kind of personality, what kind of things that you like, there are things for you to choose from. But not just at that time, because at that moment in time you may like certain things, but things change as you get older. So I remember when I was younger, this was very popular, and And then when I find that when I went to the uni and for the younger people, they find this sort of things a lot more popular, I have absolutely no idea who this person is. No, I'm joking. I actually know who he is. I have young children too. And, um, and then as you get older, certain part of the population, they like this sort of things. And then the older people, they probably remember this very, very well. But saying that there's a comeback. So all the young people seem to have gone into details now. So why do I put up these slides? Because yes, it's a bit funny to see that things change as we get older. We change, and sometimes it's something that we like to do that change as we get older, and sometimes it's our body stop letting us do it. Like for example, when you get to about 65, I'm not being ages, 65, 70 years old, and it's actually quite taxing on your body to do a triathlon. And it's actually very taxing on your body to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and stay out through the day. So our body clock change, our body change, and our physiology change, and our mindset, our preference, our family, all sorts of things come in. So things change with time. So exactly the same as in medicine. Okay. So for you, those of you who tune into this, I assume that you have done biology or some form of science program. So this is probably one of the most exciting jobs that I ever done in my life. Okay. And I've been through some exciting things in life, but this is probably one of the most exciting jobs that I've done. So most of you know what is an abdominal aorta. Aorta is the big pipe that connects our heart and supply the blood to all over our body. And unfortunately, when we get older, like most things elastic, the elasticity can lose some elasticity, so the thing can expand and it swell up. And as you can imagine, the big pipe that is linking the heart to our leg, the big long pipe, will carry most of the blood of our body that going to the leg. If it swell up to a certain point, when you swell up, like most elasticity stuff, when the whole thing starts getting stretched, it gets thinner. When it gets to a certain thinness, it bursts. Okay, and there's nothing more emergency than that. Falling off a bicycle seems serious at the time when I was on the floor on the road earlier, but it's nothing compared to this. Okay, majority of people with a ruptured abdominal aneurysm die on the spot, and 50% of them will make it into the hospital, and after that, another 50% will probably die before we actually take them to the operating theater. Then after that, half of them will still die before we actually manage to find where the problem is and stitch it up for them. So it's a very, very serious problem, very, very urgent. But I seem to remember at the time I was 26 years old, and it seems to happen all in the middle of the night. At 3 a.m., I seem to remember. I'm sure it happens at other times, but we seem to get it a lot at 3 a.m. And when I was 20 something years old, this is the most exciting thing ever. You rush into the operating theater, you cut the abdomen open, and you see blood everywhere. Sometimes you don't see blood everywhere because there's another piece of tissue that's holding onto the blood. So you cut the pressure, then the blood will pump everywhere. Sometimes people, their heart actually stop at the moment because you release the blood and then they crash with their blood pressure and the heart stops. And just like watching in the TV is really, really exciting. The most exciting things that you can do in life. And the number of times we actually manage to, person's heart stop, we suck out all the blood, find where the hole is, stitch it up, pump the blood back in, and restart the heart. And the next day you can talk to the person, despite the person having had died the day before. So it's actually a really, really exciting type of surgery. And you can spare no time. You can't waste any time when it comes to this emergency. The problem is when you get to about 30 something years old, you start questioning, why does it have to happen so late? I'm really tired. And especially when you've done a 24-hour on call, and it could be a 56 hours on call, you didn't have enough sleep. And why is it happening at this time when I'm just about to get some sleep after I finish all my job at about 1 or 2 o'clock, and then this sort of things happen. And when you're 40 years old, I can tell you, at 3 o'clock in the morning, the best friend is your pillow, and you know, you start questioning, is there anyone else could do? I'm not saying that this applies to everybody. It kind of works to some extent with me, and I find it harder and harder to cope. And I have utmost respect for all those people who continue doing this sort of thing, this kind of job, with their stamina and with great tenacity that they keep doing this sort of job, saving lives and things like that. And also in medicine, at 3 o'clock in the morning, when you're 20 something years old, the likelihood is you don't have children, to take to school, and you don't have all sort of all the paraphernalias that comes with getting old, the school parent teacher meeting and driving children to school and things like that. So when you're 20 years something, it doesn't matter, happen whatever time. It's just the most exciting thing ever. When 30 something, 40 something, when children start coming along, and just in case your wife, so happened my wife is also was a surgeon at the time, and it just start to interfere with a lot of family life. So your life change, medicine change, and your body change, all sort of things change as you go along. So you need to start thinking about all these sort of things before you actually jump into it and start regretting it later. Okay, I hope I haven't put you off completely in doing medicine, or hopefully, some people might get very, very excited when we start talking about blood and everything. But not every field in medicine will be very, very exciting with lots and lots of blood. And there's a lot of things could be a lot calmer, but the satisfaction is incredible. I still remember some times ago when I was in the UK, I was helping out in the hospice where the people with end-stage disease, cancer, they're going into a very calm environment. All we are doing, we're not trying to save their life because it's coming near the end. So we need to make sure that everything is comfortable, make sure that they don't have too much secretion, make sure that they are breathing fine, make sure they're not in pain. And we use all sort of a cocktail of medication just to make things nice for the person who are dying, and as well as the family who are watching them. So nothing is real emergency in those areas, but the satisfaction, the achievement that you get, even though we didn't eventually save the life, because we can't go against life forces when people with end-stage cancer and things like that, once they've gone beyond the ability that we can treat. But still, you get an immense satisfaction if you do it well. The amount of gratitude and things that you get from families is immensely pleasurable. Well, not pleasurable, but it's very, very rewarding if things are done well. So, if you're still interested, this is where the most people find it scary. So, as you can see on the graph, the undergraduate training is the small part. Okay, it's 5 years. And in the UK system, you then move on to a foundation year 1 and 2 training. And after that, you just get a full registration with the medical council. Every country, you must register with the medical council before you can work as a doctor. And you do that. And once you've done that, finish your 2 years of training, you will go into your specialist training. And some of the specialist training, as you can see here, specialist training 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the other one is the core training, 1, 2, 3, and then specialist training 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what happens is there are slightly two different things here. When it comes to specialist training, some had already decided they've gone specifically into that kind of specialism, so they go straight for a specialist training. but like a lot of things, like for example, in surgery, you go into core training, you learn all the basic surgical skills and all the basic things that you need to be able to do. Then you go into specialist one. Like for example, when I mentioned earlier about the vascular surgery, and some people go into neurosurgery, brain surgery, or heart surgery, things like that. You move on to the specialist training after the 3 years. So you can count 5 years in medical school, 2 more years a foundation year. So that makes it 7 years. Yeah. And then after that, 3 more years in core training, which is 10 years. And the likelihood is, no, actually, and then after that, another maybe 4 or 5 years of specialist training. So you're talking about 14 or 15 years. So a lot of people find that 14, 15 years is a very, very long time. And the bad news is the likelihood is after the foundation two, you may not get in the core training because it's highly competitive. If you think that medical school is hard to get in, nowadays may not be as tricky because there are more medical school about. So you're talking about, for example, in Newcastle, we probably have about 500 applicants on average. We only have about 150 something spaces. And in the UK, it's even worse. And most people think that the hardest bit is getting into medical school. It actually the hardest bit is once you finish your foundation year two to try to get into a core training. And I can tell you, when I was in my fun days, when I was 26 years old doing surgery, I remember when I got the job, it's like winning a lottery, because when I got the surgical training job, there were 4 jobs and there were 600 people apply for the 4 jobs. So it's actually really, really, really tough to actually get in. Nowadays, it's a little bit easier because the organization is better in UK. And in Malaysia, things are improving as well. But still, it's not an easy thing. And also moving from core training into specialist training, there's another hurdle. So a lot of people have opted to do 2 or 3 years of masters in research, in various things to improve their CV so that they can muscle themselves into the next one. Because otherwise, everybody who applies for those jobs will have their medical degree. Everybody will have a reference that say, this person is good. Everybody, all the 600 people who applied for the 4 jobs when I went for the job, everybody had exactly the same thing in their CV. So you need to get something in so that you can stand out a little bit more. So now more and more people are taking a 6 years undergraduate training. So they incorporate 1 year of some bachelor's degree in either research or medical education or something, and it helps them with some publications so that they can stand out a little bit more from the crowd. Okay, because it is a very, very crowded place. So this in Malaysia, most people find that, after that you can come out to become a GP and things. In the UK, after the foundation year two, you still need minimum of 3 years of training before you get qualification for GP. And in Malaysia, they are slowly moving the way. They're not going to let people start. I think in the next few years, things might change. They're not going to let people just finish a foundation year, come out and open a clinic, because they find that a general practice is actually one of the harder area to cover, because you actually have to know a fair bit of everything. So I remember after leaving surgery, went into general practice training in the UK. There's so much that I needed to cover, and I was older then, and I had a lot more experience, and I still found it a little bit tricky. And so even for general practice, there's still at least 5 years after graduation before one can start working as a GP. But it's not all bad news. Okay, I'm just going to hurry up a little bit. So it's not all bad news. It's very, very similar to, unless some of your parents are already owning the company, not many people will finish their business studies or management studies and they come out and become the CEO of the company. Not many people will have that kind of opportunity. Most people will have to work through their ranks from the office boy to whatever to the management level. Then they slowly work up to be the head of a company. And at least in medicine, when you graduate from the undergraduate training, you go through all this training and things. At one point, you're going to become a specialist or become a consultant, as long as you stick it out. And the majority of people get that. And it's very competitive, but at some point, majority of people that I know of will get there. And also, when you're working as a Foundation 1, Foundation 2, specialist training, core training, and all this sort of thing, you're not sitting in the classroom like in university. You are actually earning some income. Is enough for you to live quite comfortably, but you just have more exams to do. And so when you finish all these exams, you become a consultant. Doesn't mean that you stop having exams. You still have to have a yearly appraisal, to have your continuous professional development. Make sure that you keep up to date with the latest information about medicine. Instead of it doesn't mean that when you become a specialist or a consultant, you can stop learning anything or stop doing anything. It's a continuous thing. That's why right from the start, I said in medicine, it's something that you sign up for life, well, at least until for your whole working life anyway. And I strongly believe that it will be after working life as well. I've seen many of my friends who retired, who have retired. People continue asking them things, and they kind of still keep in touch because you've been doing it for the last 40 years. It's highly unlikely. It's a difficult habit to break anyway. So, career in medicine, there's at least 65 different specialties, plenty to choose from to suit everybody's needs. Okay, and the criteria to get into medical school is A level. You need to get 2A, a B for minimum for our university anyway. Every university will have a slightly different sort of criteria. So you make sure you check with the university that you are going for. For a Malaysian Medical Council, you need to have biology, chemistry, physics, or maths. And this is a requirement. So without A levels or STPM, biology, chemistry, you can't register with the council. And also for a Malaysian council, you will need to have SPM Bahasa to be able to register with the council. So make sure that you get all that clarified before you sign up. And Foundation 3.75, IELTS of 7.0. So IELTS is for our university because our whole course is run on with English, and a lot of materials are actually developed in the UK. And so if the ability to master the English language is somewhat, if it's below 7, you will struggle. So the reason why for the criteria is not to stop people coming in. The reason why the criteria is there is to make sure that we do not waste your time or our time, because there's the last thing that any responsible university wants to do is take people in who cannot really pass, and so it will be quite irresponsible, and that's why the high entry criteria. So I'm just going into a little bit about interview in the last few minutes. When it comes to application, the Malaysian university is probably not a university or branch campus or campuses in Malaysia. It's probably a little bit easier to get in. You just need to perform reasonably well in the interview. If you're thinking of going overseas, especially if you think places like I know full well about UK. Each university is designed to make enough local people to become doctors in UK, and so they only have about 20 or less spaces for international students. And for the international students, it's not just from Malaysia. You're fighting with people from India, from the Middle East, from all over the world. So for all these 20 spaces, it's hugely competitive. Okay, so unless you do extremely well in your interview, you're not going to look any different to anyone else. So it'll be impossible to get in. And so it's always well to prepare the interview well. So the first thing about the interview is you need to know about the university they want to apply to. You don't just send a CV to everybody, to every university. And when I ask you, why do you want to come here and what do you know about the system in our university, our course, you go, oh, yeah, I like the name of the university. And that's not good enough. So you need to learn about the course because every university has a slightly different way of delivering the medical training. Some are better suited for certain personality or your study skills because some people are much better at reading and learning and memorizing and things like that. Some people are much better at using the spiral thing. They have to think outside the box. They have to create, some are case-based learning. You follow the patient through. Some are problem-based learning. Make sure you learn about all these terms. Make sure you learn about that and only apply to those universities that actually suit your learning style because otherwise you end up going to struggle through the 5 years. You're going to get the same end result anyway, but why do you want to struggle through the 5 years? Because it doesn't suit your kind of personality with the kind of courses that run. And make sure you know a little bit about being a doctor, not just, oh, my friend is a doctor, or I went to a doctor's clinic and sat there for 2 weeks, so I know what is all. So make sure that you have a broader understanding. Talk to enough people what actually the job entails and what other professional behavior, the mannerism and things. I I I I I, I probably shouldn't bring up something political, but in COVID time, there was this a doctor in Penang who got into a bit of bother and things like that. Those sort of things can actually land you in trouble. The medical council, even if you're not wearing your lab coat and tie and not working in your clinic, even if you're outside, you misbehave, the medical council can strike you off. And if they strike you off, you can't work in the country as a doctor. So make sure that you understand of being a doctor as a holistic approach rather than the person sitting in the clinic or in the hospital. Make sure you have some understanding of the healthcare system in, well, I say Malaysia here, in any country that you're applying to. So don't just say that your healthcare system. I only been to a Gleneagles private hospital, and that is again not. It does not show a true understanding of the healthcare system. And some of the interviewees have absolutely no idea what is a clinical setting because they were so privileged that they never have to use it at all. And so make sure that you know a little bit about that. There may be some interview question about ethical reasoning. That may give you a tricky scenario and to see what kind of person it is, how ethical the person is. But these questions tend to be a little bit more rare, but they do pop up from time and time again. And what we want to see is a very well-rounded person, someone who can learn from the experience, learn from the mistake, and not high ego. Because unfortunately, medical profession has always attracted a lot of people with a really huge ego because they've always been the first in their class. And I can tell you now, very few people become the first in medical school. A lot of times, they may not even ranking. So don't let that deter you. And we want someone who is more flexible, who are able to reflect on their experience, and a well-rounded person. And what I mean by a well-rounded person is there's a candidate who applied for job who applied for the place last year, and I insisted on not giving that candidate a place. Uh, it is a straight A student, and I was shocked when I looked at the hobby section, and that's why I questioned the hobbies. The hobby is mentioned. I love reading, and that was the only hobby. And when I start questioning, if reading is a good hobby, wonderful, depending on what you read. So when I start questioning about the hobby, I said, well, so what kind of books what kind of genre, what kind of books you like to read? Since that was your own kind of only hobby, which I didn't particularly wasn't impressed because I like to see a little bit more well-rounded. And the person's answer was majority, I love reading my textbooks so I can do well in exam. And the whole interview room immediately had put a big cross on there and not offer the person place. Make sure you're a well-rounded person. Make sure that you go find something you like to do. Yes, I know falling off a bicycle is a very painful experience. I'm sitting here with a broken bone talking to you, but you need to live a fuller life, and we want people like that who practice in medicine so that they have a better view of human life rather than someone who is very textbook smart. Okay, I think, I believe that would be all the time that I have. Sorry that I have the tendency to talk a little bit too much.
All right. Hi, Dr.
So welcome with any questions.
Yes, okay. Before that, thank you so much for such an insightful conversation. It was also very entertaining. I enjoyed the part with the illustration about which area path you want to enter. I thought it was like a simplified way of for somebody who's not in the medical scene to understand what it all entails. Are you afraid of the dark? Are you not afraid of the dark? It's actually pretty entertaining. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then okay, so we've reached nearing the end of the session. Let's check at some questions. Doctor, can you see the questions at the live comment section on the side?
Oh
You,
yes.
yeah, you might have to scroll down a little bit until you reach the section for medicine. I'm just gonna pull up some questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. There are different types of questions. Let me see
Yeah,
the
it's all from our previous speakers. You just have to scroll down a little bit to the bottom.
near the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, can you see it, doctor?
I'm just scrolling through them. Okay. So yeah,
So
I
the
can.
first Yeah, so the first one will be from Chu J. Ren. Would you like to check
Hi,
that one?
good
It's about,
Yeah.
yeah, all right. So it's about work-life balance.
Yes. That is a really good question. I'm so happy that you asked this now at your age, because this is something that I wasn't thinking of. So work-life balance, it can be achieved. I have many friends who are both husband and wife, are both surgeons, and they really have to micromanage all their time with their children and things like that. And generally, work-life balance can be achieved very well as a doctor. Um, at the training time in Malaysia can be a little bit tricky for a few years when you're a junior doctor. When you get a little bit more senior, you can control things a lot better. In the UK, on the other hand, there is a very strict work hours that they have to adhere to, and it's illegal for the hospital to make you to work more hours. So now the work-life balance can be quite good. So my sister is a liver surgeon in the UK, and 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 they have a little daughter, and husband also works in a hospital, and they managed to achieve a very good work-life balance by choosing things that they want to do, and still able to spend time with the family. And I have to say that you probably have to work slightly longer hours. You may have to limit the time that you spend with your family due to on call and all this sort of thing, but you can make it up with the quality. So I don't
Mhm.
think, for my experience, it has been bad.
All right. Okay, so I hope you have understood the work-life balance of being a doctor in Malaysia, especially. Let's move on to our next question by Tiba. Can you see it, doctor?
For Tiba, yes, I do. Oh, thank you very much.
A good bedside manner.
Yes, this is something that is very important. There's some
Mm-hmm.
people who are naturally more gifted at at better at dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a lot of evidence to suggest that a lot of all these bedside manners, communication skills can be taught and can be learned. Okay, for the extreme cases, yes, there are some. There may be some cases that we at the interview we find that I think this is going to be really tough. So we have an honest
Mm-hmm.
discussion with the candidate saying that may not be suitable for you.
Mm-hmm.
But for majority of people, I would say 99.999% of people can actually learn that skill. It's actually not that hard. So in Newcastle, we actually put a lot of emphasis from year one all the way through year five with
Mm-hmm.
proper communication skills training. So I used to lead on the communication skills training for all the 5 stages. We've written a lot of material to help people to be a better communicator. And most people, once they are able to do it, they tend to excel and do well. Yeah.
I see. All right. Okay. So
Yeah.
I hope Tiba understands. She got that. Okay. So there's another question from one of our students. We garnered some questions yesterday. So our team have pulled this question out from Cheong Zia Ru. How many holidays do doctors have? What's the best university of medicine in Malaysia?
Well, how many holidays? It really depends, because if you run your own clinic,
Mm,
you can have as much
yeah.
holiday as you want, and depend on how much money you want to earn. And so in the UK, I can tell you from UK, because majority of them are actually part of the National Health Service, and you can there are many of my friends are actually choosing to work part time, which means they work 2.5 days a week. So
Oh,
can you imagine how much holiday? And they're still having a very good work life. They kind of relate to the first question about work life balance. All these
yeah.
friends, instead of 100,000, they decide that they will earn 50,000, which they find that it's probably enough for them to live anyway, and and still with a reasonably good lifestyle, and they can spend as much time with their family. They work 2.5 days. So there are at least, when I was in the UK, there were at least 4 doctors, 2 male, 2 female. They were all working 2.5 days a week. And
Wow.
and to be fair, you can choose a lot of variety as well, because I was doing 3 days in the clinic, and I spent 2 other days to do the money bit, the commissioning group that looks after the healthcare spending in the local area.
Yeah.
So it depends. On average, I think most people will get at least 20 something days if they are employed by someone.
Right.
And
Okay.
what is the best university of medicine in Malaysia is a tricky one for me to answer. It really depends on what you want. Like, for example, the local university, if you can get in, like University of Malaya and things, that'll be wonderful news. And if you find that it's difficult to get in those, you have to go to the private sort of university. You need to pick whichever course that suits you. And also, some benefits on some university, like for example in Newcastle University, Malaysia. If a lot of people chose it so that they can get a springboard to push them into the job market in the UK. So far
Yeah.
we've been very successful at getting a lot of people to work in the UK. Some people would want to live in Australia. They might choose one that spring them into Australia. So it really depends on what you want. I think everyone is very good.
All right. Okay. Doctor, let us answer a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Is there any questions from the live comment that you would like to pick?
Uh, let me scroll through it.
Yes.
Oh yeah, there's an interesting question from Royce Tang Kwang, and
Okay.
it's the last one at the bottom.
Yeah.
I heard from the news that after the foundation training, in some cases, government of Malaysia do not offer jobs or contracts to those medical officers. In this case, does that mean the MO will become jobless? Good question. They will not become jobless. All of them will have a annual practicing certificate. And if you look in the Malaysian primary care site, because what happens in Malaysia at the moment, anyone can, once you completed your training job, when you become an MO, you are qualified to become a GP. So a lot of those people are working locally in clinics or on things, and they actually have a reasonable financial reward to do most of that. Most of them live fairly well.
All right.
Okay. Um,
Okay.
any advice?
Yeah. Some other
Uh,
questions we can check.
yes, there's one from Chiu Jae Ren.
Before
Uh,
entering?
before entering into core training, is
Okay.
there a set number of years? there's not really a set number of years. In Malaysia, you will it's a competitive entry, so it's highly unlikely that you're going to get in straight away. And if you're lucky
Right.
enough, you may do, but most people will end up having to take the extra exam, like the membership in Royal College of Surgeons or membership in Royal College of Physicians, before you are able to secure a place.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I hope Chu have managed to garner that answer. And before they want to, I feel like Chu might have been interested in pursuing medicine from the questions that he's asked. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
All
that's
right.
right.
Yeah, all right. So, Dr. Ong, thank you so much for being with us today. Despite your situation, you've been such a good sport to us. And we hope that our audience have gained some valuable information about medical, how to pursue medical degree, and how to become a doctor in Malaysia as well from this session. So, Dr. Ong, we hope to see you again soon for our next webinar series. Yeah.
Okay, sure, no problem. I'll be sitting on my couch for the next 6 weeks. I'm told I cannot move.
Oh
And
no. Okay.
yeah, my apologies that I didn't manage to answer some of those questions, but do
No
send it
way.
to our marketing team. Who will help you to address it anyway.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ong. Have a good day and take care.
Thank you.